Eastern teacher. So today's video, we have Mrs. Jodi Long here to talk to us a little bit about maybe a unique aspect of teaching. So first, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
First, could you start by telling us, why did you become a teacher?
Okay, well, I think I've always wanted to be a teacher. I loved school myself, so I had wonderful teachers. I was at a small school in Virginia, and I just think I knew from a young age. I used to play teacher, and I loved math, and so I think I just knew right away I wanted to be a teacher. I love kids. I wasn't sure which grade I wanted to work with, so as a student teacher, I tried a lot of different levels, but I've always been involved with teaching in some aspect since my young 20s, I guess. So love it.
Very cool. So what has been your experience in teaching? What things have you taught? What grade levels? And what have you been involved with?
Okay, well, I've just finished 19 years of teaching, and most of that has been in the middle school. Mostly in math. Like I said, I love math, so I've been teaching math, although I've dabbled in social studies and science. I've subbed for PE, so you kind of get thrown in a lot of different areas when you need it. And then the last 5 years, I was working with testing. So I was the testing coordinator at my school, kind of in charge of standardized tests, but also local tests and state tests, and data input and helping the teachers with that.
So why middle school?
Yeah, middle school is not everybody's favorite. Middle school is a tough age, but I just connect with those kids. I like their humor, and they're such different creatures from 6th grade to 8th grade. You see huge growth, and I enjoy that. So yeah, I just kind of connect with those kids. I like those kids. They're sweet. They're going through a lot of stuff. So that's what I've enjoyed.
Very cool. First question that we're going to dive in deep on is, you mentioned being the testing coordinator. Can you explain what that role is, and how did you use data and standards and testing to influence teaching?
Yeah, I don't think anybody goes into education thinking, wow, one day I'm going to be the testing coordinator. I mean, that is not a coveted job at any school, and usually that person doesn't last very long. But I've been in math for a long time in the classroom, and my principal approached me and said, Jodi, we really need somebody in this position. I think you'd be perfect for it. It's a person that is really into details and likes to look at data and maybe figure out how it can help teachers. And so that's what I did. So a lot of people think standardized tests, the state tests, it's a terrible thing, and I'm not 100% loving state tests myself. But it does help teachers stay accountable, and you have a goal to meet. Certainly you don't want to just teach to the test. But we used it at our school in a lot of ways. We would look at strands. So my job would be to break down stuff for teachers and say, hey, this is where our 6th grade is needing some help. We're really struggling with fractions in this regard. Or how we're doing really, really great in this. So teachers would get a chance to talk to each other and say, hey, we must be doing something really right on this. Whatever we're doing here, let's see if we can help other grades with that. Or even make videos and share with other teachers, or they might look at the data and say, wow, we're really, our students are struggling here. Let's really put a lot of thought into this and our lesson planning and different strategies, and see which teachers are succeeding or which teachers need help. So it was a lot of, in middle school we do a lot of teaming. So we work together, we share, and I enjoyed helping with that.
What are some of the lessons you learned from 19 years in education?
Well, I was telling you earlier, I think teaching is 20% content and 80% everything else. So, when you first start out, you think, gosh, I got to know all this stuff about my subject. Really, the subject never changes. I mean, it does a little bit here and there, but, kids can learn everything that they want to by Google now. So really, that's not where it's at. It's all about student engagement, getting students excited and wanting to be in your classroom, You've got, middle schoolers with attitudes and all kinds of things, and you've got all, mesh of students who are super great in this area and struggling in this area. So you got to try to involve everyone. So one of the things even I did as a testing coordinator was try to come up with strategies teachers could use to engage students, get them motivated, get them moving. Hands-on activities are really good. And not just lecturing from the board. That's just not something that's ever going to be exciting for anybody. So.
Yeah. So mentioning engagement I think is really important, especially for new teachers. It's kind of the most mysterious piece that maybe not as well explained in teacher preparation courses. What are some of those techniques, those practices of how you helped make math fun and really engage with students?
Yeah, the key is over planning. So you can find a lot of great ideas on the internet, obviously, but over plan, break your classroom down into little pieces. Even adults like that too. So come in with icebreakers, some sort of bell ringer is what a lot of teachers call it. But have something that's exciting that's up on the board that just maybe it doesn't even have to relate to your subject. It can just be a word problem, something that's just, even relative to what they're listening to on the radio or a movie or something. I used to have pictures of the Avengers up on my board. So they'd come in and there would be the Avengers, and my word problem wouldn't even necessarily be about the Avengers, but they'd see it and be all excited about it. So, just pulling something real that they can relate to, and then and just break it up into small pieces. Games are really big. We had this one game that I used a lot, which was where you moved around the room. Now I can't even think of what it's called, but you shuffled seats. So you'd have some sort of problem relating to what you're studying, and on every single desk. And you might give the kids 45 seconds or a minute, and they have to do that problem, write it on their paper. You'd have like a little template for them, and then you'd say, you could have a timer, 3, 2, 1, and then they have to rotate to the next desk. And so that would just, get them moving. And maybe, sometimes you have those kids that'll just sit there forever and not want to pick up their pencil. This forces them to, you got to do it. Make it a contest. Who can get the most, done? Doesn't necessarily have to always be right, but, that kind of thing. Those little activities. We played trash-get-ball. So we would have, whenever we had a unit test, we would have 2 teams, and I would ask them questions, and they would be competing for scores. And if they got it right, they got to shoot a trash into the trash can, and that was an extra point to their team. That was their favorite. I mean, they always asked me if they could play trash-get-ball, so that was a big thing. Those kinds of activities, Jeopardy. I could name so many different activities that we did, and again, you can Google, find so many cool activities. Even the way you ask questions, open-ended questions, are really good, and then the way you have them respond. So today, I don't want you to ever raise your hand. I want you to wink. or something. It depends on your age group.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Anything that's just different. And then call on people by their color that they're wearing. Somebody that's wearing red today, can you tell me, something like that? Because it just makes them think a little bit more, and they're not put on the spot, and you don't have the same kids answering the questions all the time. A lot of teachers I know use the popsicle stick thing, where they just pull out a popsicle stick and that has the kid's name on it. So, those are ways to engage students and get them going. Of course, they love to come up to the board and do things for you that way to help out. Just getting them moving, getting them asking questions.
Last question I want to ask. What are some of your most memorable moments as a teacher, or things that you're always going to remember this?
Well, you always remember those kids who maybe weren't the best behavior-wise. So, I think that's one of the things. Classroom management is a struggle. And so my first 2 years when I was fresh out of Virginia Tech and starting in the classroom, my job was at alternative ed school. And so these kids were potential dropouts from all over the county, and they came here, and I think I only had 12 in the class. But, you know, I'm right out of school. I think I know everything, and I'm ready to teach my subject, and I got my lesson plans, and why aren't these kids listening to me? You know, that kind of thing. So that is the most memorable experience, is just having to figure out this isn't working. You know, you cannot just keep on going because that's what you learn in school and that's what you think should be working. If it's not, you've got to stop and try something else. So I remember thinking, okay, they're textbooks. No, they're not going to work. We're not going to look through textbooks. We are going to do real life stuff. So I think at that time I was teaching a civics class. So I thought, okay, these kids need to learn how to be good citizens. That's what they're struggling with. So that first year is probably my most memorable, and thinking of ways to get them liking school, because they never liked school. Doing things like debates over things that matter to them. You know, let's talk about, this is a real world issue. How do you feel about it? Why? Defend yourself. Tell me why you feel that way. So just being able to communicate, teaching communication skills, critical thinking skills, and seeing those kids later in life. I was telling you earlier that, you know, I saw a student just a few months ago, and these were my first 2 years. So we're talking, you know, 19 years ago, and seeing these kids in the grocery store, and they come up to me and they call me by my maiden name because I wasn't married at the time. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And they're thanking me. You know, they remember the class and they enjoyed it, and that means the most. It's not about how many A's I got, how many passes. It's relationships. So whatever age you're teaching, it's really about relationships, getting to know your kids, getting to know what they like, what they're strong in, their family life, that kind of thing. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. That has definitely been a theme of like that relationship, the community that you create is so important to the success or the failure or the struggle of the teacher.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us this time, and stay tuned for our next episode of The Wandering Middle Eastern Teacher. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.
See ya.